to the Economy and Property Committee meeting, including, I don't think there's any visiting members online, but certainly an officer online. Let's introduce the members of staff we have here. So, first of all, let's say hello to everyone. Anyone participating remotely, please switch off your camera and your mic unless you wish to speak. We do not use the camera facility as it affects the IT connection. Please note that the meeting may be recorded and the data collected during the recording meeting will be retained in accordance with Council's data protection policy. Recording of the meeting may be added to the Council's website. Members accessing the meeting remotely should use their SBC or KCC laptops to participate virtually. And if you join using the link on the website or on a mobile tablet device, it's not possible to identify you, you will not be recording as in remote attendance. So we have tonight with us from the officers. We have Head of Place, Joanne Johnson. We've got Head of Environment and Leisure, Martin Cassell, who's online. We've got Strategic Programmes and Assets Manager, Kieran Mansfield. We've got Capital Programme Manager, Inga Lorraine. And we have Democratic Services Officer, Billy Attaway, whose last night it is with us in a meeting. So, firstly, thank you, Billy. We'll give you a good send-off, I'm sure. There's no fire drill tonight. Nothing's planned. So if the alarm sounds, those in attendance should leave via the fire exits. Please do not use the lift. And is there anyone that requires any assistance? One, okay. You've made yourselves known. We've noted that. Thank you. We've got apologies of absence and confirmation of substitutes. So at the moment, I've got Councillor Listerchuk, who's substituted with Chris Palmer, Councillor Chris Palmer, and we've got apologies from Councillor Leanne Moore, who can't be with us tonight, and Peter Marchington. Apologies as well. Okay, thank you. We've got minutes to approve here, minute numbers 153 to 163. Do you agree they are a correct record of that meeting?
Yep.
Agreed. Okay, thank you. Do we have any declarations of interest anyone wants to declare tonight? That's great. Okay, let's go to the item for noting is forward plan. So are you considering the forward plan? Noted. Do you want to speak?
Yes, please. So we have on there, you'll know, the UK for Prosperity Fund's continuation. So that was set for January or March 2026, depending on when we got sufficient information from government to be able to make a decision around that. There is a new scheme that's been announced. It's not quite a direct replacement for the UK Shared Prosperity Fund as we know it. And there's two principal areas of difference. One is that the fund is entirely capital. So the last time we had a revenue element to it. And there are now 3 objectives or interventions, which are community spaces, public spaces, and or high street and town centre revitalisation. We've been awarded £1.5 million, then to the end of this financial year and across next financial year, we can roll money through those years. We get the first payment next month of £750,000. There's a line of thought now that says that because there's the community spaces and the public spaces angle to this, it straddles a number of service committees. So you could choose to invest in play parks, sports and leisure centres, which do not sit within the domain of this committee. There's a suggestion that rather than that coming here, it would go to policy and resources, which works as the kind of parent committee of something for those other committees. And a suggestion that we use the member working group that we have in UK Shared Prosperity Funds to generate some ideas, to generate some principles that then get taken to PNR to use that as the sounding board. And while that isn't a direct fit in terms of reference for the working group, that group has seen the funds through, it knows what the funds are about. One of the tasks we set for the funds for this year was that the project could have continuation into the future. So if you're happy with that, we'll come off the forward plan for us, go on to the forward plan for P&R, but the working group that's been established would help pull that report together and feed into P&R. And then I think we would suggest to P&R that oversight and monitoring comes back to this committee, because it would be a capital project. It has to be, so it'd be investment into one of our assets, whatever that looks like. And we could then do the governance and the oversight back here.
Okay, members, do you want to share any thoughts on that? Councillor Wise.
Yeah, I think that's a sensible proposal, because given the time constraints around making sure that the money is spent and well used, the fact that obviously the 3 areas the government said it could or should be spent on straddles different service committees. I don't want that to create more hurdles that ultimately then slows us down identifying and funding projects. So P&R can do that, and then it comes back to this committee. Sensible. Ultimately, all assets and down for those assets sits with this, and as capital spend going into those, I would like this committee to retain position of overseeing that. So that sounds sensible to me. And I think working groups worked well for both LUF and ASPF. So having sort of continuation with the UK SPF working group, I think sounds sensible.
Anyone else? Yeah, Kevin.
Sorry, just to add, Chair, there was originally a UK Share Prosperity Fund member working group plan for October, which aligns with our monitoring reporting. I know that Chris has been trying to get a date, but it's not been easy in terms of aligning diaries. There isn't too much substantively to report on, in that there aren't many things going wrong, if you like, in terms of delivering the programme. So with members agreement, it may be an idea to not hold the October one, just to say, member time, and to defer it to the November one. And if there are any issues that we need to deal with prior to monitoring, we would monitoring report submission, so which at the end of October, we could attempt to deal with that through email.
And can you remind us of the timing of committees? Because obviously if this goes to P&R, when's the next P&R?
It would go to the 5th of February.
So we've got one in between, haven't we? We've got
29th
of January. So there is an opportunity for us, if something needs to come here that we wanted to discuss as a result of discussions in the working group, potentially.
Well, I would add, Chair, as well, but the first monitoring report for the new fund is due in February, so we'll need to make sure that that's lined up, so that we're submitting something in February that allows us to roll the money over into the 26, 20. Is that right? 26, 27.
That's wise.
Yeah, I think that's really good point actually about those timelines. Then that shows need for us to streamline this and not get caught in the weeds of various service committees on that. So P&R making that and then referring it back to this committee to see it through, I think, through that.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah. Well, I don't, because it's only just come in today. I have to say I haven't had a chance to look at this in any detail, but at least a working group can have a look at that, take it through the first machinations, and then we can at least we've got an opportunity to put that in. Is everyone content with that? An idea. Okay. We'll need full attendance on the working group, so we'll try and do it at a time of day that suits most people.
I'll get Chris on it.
It might be later in the day to make sure that.
Yeah,
Okay, right. Anything else on the forward plan? I suppose one thing I wanted to highlight really to members is obviously we've got Homes England coming up, and I think we need individually and collectively to put our thinking caps on as to what we may wish to ask, because I think this is our opportunity to hold Homes England to account on Queenborough and Rushden. Is there paper that could be circulated to members well ahead of time, just to give them an overview? You're drafting it.
I'll drop that.
Okay. I think it's like that to give us an updated position, a bit of history, because there's quite a few new members to this committee. And possibly point us to where we've got agreements, what those agreements say, as an information providers, because effectively we've got a contractual relationship, is my understanding, and that members need to be aware of that and how that works. And that if they want the opportunity to read that document, they can. So a link maybe to go to. Good with that?
Yeah.
Are you all members? It gives you something to sink your teeth into, so you've got some good background and come informed. And you know, if you want to have a sort of a pre-meet as a group to think about the questions, then I'm prepared, you know, we could organise something. If that's something you want to do, you need to.
I think that would be
Helpful. We can do it online if you want to. That's easy for people to dial in maybe one evening. See if we can help the democratic services. You get out of that one nicely. So an informal session of the committee to organise its thoughts on that. Okay. Lovely. Anything else you want to raise in this plan? So all noted? Yeah. Right, that's lovely, thank you. Right, item 6. This is the transfer of council car parks. This is in response to council motion. The officers is important. Martin, over to you, online.
Thank you, Chair, and apologies I can't be in the room with you tonight, councillors. So
Very quiet.
I'm very quiet, am I? Ooh. Is that better? Is that better? Can you hear me now?
This is speaking for issue.
Yeah, see if I can figure it out.
Billy, it's on the speaker, not on the
Martin, just to
TV.
let you know, we can't hear you at the moment. Just trying to sort it out.
Right, it's not working. Remote's not working, so I can't change the settings.
We're not coming back. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Oh,
Can you hear me at all?
there we are.
Yeah, it's normally on the speaker rather than the TV, Billy.
Yeah, no, I couldn't. I was pressing it. It just wasn't unmuted. It's done now.
Can you hear me clearly, Chair?
You can, yes.
Okay, excellent. Don't know whether that's a good or a bad thing. This report, as you said, is an initial response to the motion that was submitted, amended, and then agreed at full council in April of this year. So the resolution at full council referred it to the relevant service committee. Now, similar to Joanne's introduction previously, there is a potential crossover between this committee on the basis that you're responsible for property and asset transfers, and of course the Environmental Services and Climate Change Committee, who oversee car parking. But the reason we brought it here first is because the motion majored mainly on asset transfers. So the report details the various clauses within the parking policy and within the property asset strategy, which all in summary, all of them suggest that a blanket approach to transferring all free car parks is probably not the best way forward. Talks with towns and parishes are already underway, and I see you've got Kieran in the room who is leading those. So we believe that talks around asset transfers for car parks should go alongside the talks with those other assets with the towns and parishes as well. The key thing with the free car parks is that in order to show that we're meeting something called best consideration under the Local Government Act, we really need the Environmental Services and Climate Change Committee to review those that are free car parks first, to decide whether they could generate an income to support the council's budget setting, and in that way, if they're not deemed to be suitable for that, that's when they would then become suitable for asset transfer. So the report has 3 recommendations. It's good that Joanne and Kieran are there as well, because I think we can both answer questions on the parking policy and the property asset strategy, but happy to take any questions, Chair.
Okay, members, anyone got any questions? Yes, Councillor Palmer.
It's just I noticed on recommendation 1, it says at the relevant committee. You find the relevant committee, because I could argue it should be P&R, somebody else was there, this committee. And I think it would be better if it was defined which committee.
Great. Martin, do you want to come in on that?
The reason that I kept it fairly open was because obviously, as I said in my introduction, Environmental Services Committee will discuss the merits of charging or not charging. Once that decision's made, then I assume the asset transfer decisions would come back to this group. So I'd kept it so that it covered both. But again, we could change that resolution to be both committees, i.e. the environmental services and thing. Now, clearly with any, and Councillor Palmer, you're absolutely right, clearly with any service committee decision, if there are financial implications, then it's quite often the case that then needs to be referred up to Policy and Resources Committee as well. So quite how we come up with a definition for that, I don't know, but happy to take on board whichever the committee wants.
Members, anyone else? Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yes, Councillor Cheeseman.
Yeah, I think there's a report where it's got how many spaces in each car park and how many disabled. And I happen to realise that King George's, it says there's no disabled parking, but actually there's at least 2 disabled parking. And we think that Grafton Road, we think that's 2 there. So whether 4 has been put in there by accident, or is there any others? Because most of this is 0, I think, on all of them. So would there maybe not disabled parking not put on here?
Martin, would you like to answer that?
Yeah, my apologies. I've taken the from our asset list. So if that is the case, Councillor Cheeseman, I need to have a conversation with my officers that have kept that asset list up to date. So the Grafton Road one and the King George's will absolutely check. The rest of them are mainly unmarked car parks, in which case that's why you don't have the disableds. Obviously not at Library Queenborough, and probably a few others as well. So the legislation says that if you are substantially changing a car park, then that's when you need to, and lining a car park, that's where you need to have the prerequisite number of disabled bays. Where we have marked them out where they are not formal car parks, we've done it more as advisory, just to show willing and trying to do it. So I hope that answers, but certainly we can get those numbers checked ahead of any final decisions.
Councillor Cheeseman, you happy with that? Councillor Thompson?
Yeah, I just wondered, have they had a sort of a rough strategic assessment for utilities? I'm only thinking ahead for us for charging, because charging infrastructure is going to grow massively. Are they in opportune spaces for connection to grid, which is the most expensive? I just wonder whether that's something we might be looking at. It might be a useful asset to us in the future. That's all.
Martin?
Yeah, I mean, we do have all the utility plans to hand for our assets. So certainly when we're looking at whether charging power, as you say, when the main costs are if there's not power in the location. There's a mixture of these car parks that will have lighting and buildings nearby, so we would look at that on a basis. But yeah, absolutely right. We have access to those plans when they're considered. The other thing we've got, of course, is, and we did it with the Shingle Bank recently, where we didn't have the immediate power in the area, and we took the decision as a committee, as the community committee back then, that we would do Ringo only, so payment by phone only, rather than the requirement to run an actual physical machine in there. So we do have options.
I think I understand where Councillor Thompson's coming from, because we've got no feel from the list here, is there,
Yeah,
as to what has got capability. in
could have in
terms
the
of,
future, yeah.
yeah, power connection. So I suppose my view here is that we don't know. I mean, actually, one of them, I was quite surprised how many spaces there were. Shell Nest, 250. So I was going to query whether that's correct or not. But I think I don't think it's right to do a carte blanche. We can't look to move all of these. There are strategic reasons as to why we'd want to keep them, and that might be a very good reason for that. But it's actually quite difficult without understanding a bit more about dynamics of each site. We will need to have a discussion, I think, about dynamics of some of these. So I don't think it would be a straightforward, a couple will come up for disposal. We might want to consider that a little more.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of detail,
yes,
the detail of the conversation with individual parish and town councils, I think in terms of them identifying a want, in terms of an ask, it's possibly at that point that we bury into the real detail of the individual assets that are on their list, if you like, in terms of if they're looking for individual or a package of assets to be transferred.
Councillor Thompson, if I come back to you, is
Yes,
that
it was only one of the reasons that we had to move forward. Which is about licensing of taxis, was there was a real lack of charging in the east of the island, things like that. Just knowing the strategic positioning of things as things expand over the next 10 years.
yeah,
Are we getting rid of something and then go, oh,
yeah,
we need that charging?
Yeah.
So, and then of course the income from it's quite considerable if you
if you do it right.
Yeah.
Unlike the charging spots for taxis outside of town hall or the old town hall, and nobody ever uses it. I don't think I've ever seen it used. Councillor Palmer.
I was going to say probably in recommendation 3 that is covered, because the environmental service contract and it is about part of their consideration.
Yeah, that might be for their committee, but for this committee, we've got a strategic role for regeneration and property, and why we might want to reasonably hold on to things.
That would be covered in recommendation 2.
Yeah.
You'd be looking at that, but I'll still come back to recommendation 1. Which committee should it be? I mean, if recommendation 3 and 2, you've got 2 committees looking at it. I would have thought if it's suitable and that for asset transfer to a town or parish council or whatever, then I would have thought the relevant committee to go to would be straight away to the P&R, as most of the work's been done.
Well, it would be a property disposal, so that's why we would have to. And you want to, sorry.
And if there's a decision to charge at any of the 3 car parks, that the Environment and Climate Change Committee. So I think they're 2 separate decisions. And I see sort of the link to what I was saying previously about going up to the parent committee, but they're defined in the schemes of delegation as 2 very separate areas.
Yeah.
Again, if there was a charging set in place, it would. But if you're not going to dispose of it, then it could go to the Environment Committee for that. But if you're going to dispose of it, it should be.
I think there'd be a question of why we're disposing of it if we think we can earn an income off it.
Sorry, Chair, if I can just come in there. My view on that was if the decision's taken to charge, then clearly we would look to keep the asset and operate it as the rest of our car parks. My assumption, I think that now that I've heard the conversation, we could absolutely change number 1 to economy and property committee, because I agree. I think it's this committee's responsibility. If we've said no, we don't want it for our purposes, for charging, then it's to come back to this committee to say whether there's other strategic value in it, like you say, or it becomes a disposal at that point.
Okay. So, Councillor Clark, do we?
Yes, just side Chair. The reason why taxis use the charging points outside Old Town Hall is the simple fact that they are so slow. They're not a fast charge, and it takes so long for a taxi to charge the batteries there. Hence, the industry doesn't use them very much unless they're forced to.
Question for KCC, so they're not ours. Councillor Kavanagh, and then Councillor Wise, were you indicating? Yeah.
Question for Kieran, just in general terms, I don't want a specific council. We've been talking about this for months, about whether parish councils want to take things on. As yet, has a parish council expressed an interest in any car park? And I don't want to know what car park or what. Right, thank you, because I didn't know that.
This isn't an academic.
Right, thank you.
Councillor Wise.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think part of, I'm happy to support the recommendations, but obviously it sounds like there should be an amendment now to recommendation 1, which says at the Economy and Property Committee.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to propose that.
I'll second that.
And I think, as a response to the motion there, as amended, I was very happy to vote in favour of those recommendations, because a key part of the asset transfer process to towns and parishes must be that it's based on something they want and something that we've negotiated with them, where there's trust on both parts that, okay, this is a worked through negotiated process, and the motion, if we just followed it, wouldn't have done that and delivered that. So very happy to do that with that amended part 2 recommendation 1.
Okay, so if we vote to the, well, does anyone want to debate that amendment? No? Okay, do we all vote for it then? Okay, right, so that looks unanimous to me. Thank you very much. Right, let's go back to the main motion then, as amended. Anyone else want to speak? Okay, should we go straight to the vote then?
Sorry, Monique,
Yeah.
can I just say one thing?
Yeah.
You asked the question about Shell Ness and 250. It's an absolutely huge car park up there. None of them are marked out, so 250 is an estimate. But again, it's so far from anything. You know, there would be no plans to mark out that car park. But it is right in terms of size.
And this is the whole length. It straddles from before where the cafe is all the way up to where the nature reserve is. At the very
Yes,
end,
correct.
isn't it?
Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much. Yeah,
Okay.
all
I
the
get
way
that,
along the
right.
seawall. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay. Thank you for that clarity. Good, because I've probably got in my head that they were 2 separate things. So yeah. In fact, it could actually. I suppose that's one aspect. Is it could reasonably be. Right. Okay. Anyone else? Right, so let's take that to the vote. Do we, as proposed and amended, we take a vote on, yeah. All those in favour? Those against? Abstentions? No. Unanimous. Members. The next agenda. Thank you, Martin. We are now on to item 7, which is Barton's Point Coastal Park update. So, was that Martin's? Kieran.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of the report, whilst it does provide the update, I think, which has previously been shared with the Shepley Area Committee in respect of work that's looking at the future of Barker's Point and the identified ecological value on the site, which has kind of had an impact on in terms of how the site might be taken forward. The purpose of this report is really to rescind a position that this committee, or an earlier iteration of this committee, took back in January 2023, which was essentially to agree to the leasing, if you like, of the site for a kind of a more intensive leisure use. That is the primary purpose of the report, and whilst the Environment and Climate Change Committee consider what that future, the new future, might look like, pretty straightforward.
Okay, members, anyone got any questions? I'm sure you have. Yes, Councillor Vaughan.
I mean, I just want to say that I think the future is exciting, but it is disappointing that due to the process that's undertaken, it is massively delayed getting somebody to take over. You know, open up facilities. And yeah, I know my representation is if they want it, and yeah, this has been delayed for so long, and we still don't have an end date in sight.
Okay, thank you. I kind of agree with you. I think it's a due diligence process, and sometimes you don't actually realise what you own until there is a significant change, and obviously change in cafe operator and then future. So I think we have gone through due diligence process, which has uncovered some really interesting things. And then it's up to us as a committee to take that forward, enhance, and use that asset to our community's best advantage. So thank you. Councillor Clark.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll just pick up on paragraph 2.12 with regards to the Boathouse Cafe. It says it will continue for the remainder of the season. Is the Boathouse Cafe actually seasonal, or is it 12 months of the year opening?
I think that reflected more the licence agreement that was in place with the current operator, which is until this month. But that there will be a continued cafe operation outside.
So they will operate right the way around.
Yes.
To be a rolling contract in effect.
Yes.
And I think that's good that it continues, because the worst thing is that shuts up shop, and then you get the feeling of an asset no longer, being open.
I would presume that could be, especially during the summer months, it's quite a dull night.
Yeah, and I don't think there's probably any thought that there would be any sort of, there will be a continuous operation at some point.
Yes, there is no intention that will change in this interim period whilst the future of the site is considered a sort of slightly more realistically. Even if that operating was took from the way we would go back to market.
Yeah, I think there was quite considerable interest at the time, wasn't there, when we were looking for it. Anyone else? Councillor Wise, for you?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think obviously in terms of the report and what we need to consider as a committee, that's all fine. I just, given our involvement as a committee to date, I'm just not wanting to sort of muscle into the environment and environmental services and climate change committee's work, because I think they've got a piece of work to do now about what we do with this asset. But I do want us to sort of retain a sort of awe in slightly, because pardon the pun.
Yeah.
Because it is a significant area, Councillor Braun said, of interest for residents on the island, and knowing that it's got a sustainable future that really obviously maximises the potential that's now been revealed about the site, which is different to what was obviously originally thought. I just want to know that a bit of thought goes into how that committee will sort of work through what it ultimately comes up with as a proposal for that, and whether that's sort of informal input that sort of this committee might sort of retain. I don't know, it's ultimately up to them to determine whether they want to set up some sort of task force group or work group around this, but something that doesn't prolong things too much, but
No.
comes up with something, and that we have a little bit of input around that, particularly around, you know, what does the campaign vendor and all of that continue to look like and how that can operate. Anything that ultimately happens at this site could impact on that slightly, hopefully not significantly. But I'd be interested to know what could come forward as a way for that committee work up its recommendations.
Do we want to put time limit on this then? Do you want to have something come back to us in? Because I'm quite conscious that, and that is a bit of historic reservation, is that you've got seasonality. And if you don't do something, come up with an idea and have that ready to go by sort of February, you've kind of lost the summer. Martin, want to come in on this?
Yeah, well, not specifically on that point, but I've actually been drafting the report for Environment Committee this afternoon, so it's fairly fresh in my mind. So it's at the moment it's on the forward plan to go to the 12th of November Environment Committee. So that will keep some fairly regular pace. That initial conversation is really about understanding the implications of the report in a bit more detail, what the art of the possible is, how that impacts current users or not, as the case may be, and then obviously giving them some high level options. So I think we would get a really quick steer from Environment Committee in the November cycle, with a view to have the winter period to work on something, and then come back in the next round in January. So I think it will keep pace. Obviously, it all depends on the discussion at that committee around what they want to do, as to how deliverable it is for next spring. My inkling is that you're not going to change too much come next season, but that you would definitely have the wheels in motion of the plan of what the committee wants to do.
So thinking this through in terms of timeframes, when is the Environment Committee in January?
Is that for me? Let me just find that.
8th of January.
So then there's 2 weeks between that committee and then our one on the 29th. Is that enough time for them to have made a decision and come back to us? I mean, we can ask for an update, can't we? They'll be in a position to give us an update. They'll have had 2 meetings at that point. Councillor Tucker.
The only thing I want to ask is the decision was made nearly 3 years ago. What's changed this ecological value and why is it now an issue? And now the technically, as they take it over, is now reconsidering their position. Why was this not done 3 years ago? I really don't, and I do echo my colleagues.
Yeah.
Else, machines better than I do, etc. It just go on and on and on.
Exactly, which is why I'm keen that we get some sort of way forward, in a really, it might be a tight time frame, but we need to have a clear understanding where we're going. Do you want to give an update on the report? Give a quick summary and why it's incompatible?
To be honest, Joe, I can't add too much more to what it says in the.
Effectively, the potential tenant that was lined up, their use would have been pretty incompatible with the wildlife that's been found on site, and actually would have possibly damaged the wildlife that's been found on site. So it's significant, and hence why there's this complete change of direction.
I get all that, but there's wildlife at Highsted Park. I mean, where do we start? Where what we should be doing as a council. I mean,
yeah,
I know
No, it's fine.
I haven't got much light to shed, but other than to say, the ecological survey was a year-round survey. So there was a massive chunk of that 3 years that was the commission people to do that, and then literally monitoring things over the course of an entire year. One thing I remember reading the report is its unique nature of the water there, which for those of you who don't know what that means, I didn't. I thought it just meant dark and moody. It means a mixture of fresh water and salt water, which creates a really special habitat. And the report then goes on to give more detail to that. But it's stemmed from the combination
And the number of protected species as well. So, yeah. Councillor Kavanagh, sorry.
I think like other people said, I think it's really exciting. I've got great crested newts in my pond, much smaller than Barter's Point. But also, if we can use biodiversity net gain points or whatever you call them, instead of them being farmed off anywhere, we can make that something really special. We could harness it. So I know it's not for us, it's for environment, but it's nice to have something special for a change.
Yeah. Martin.
Yeah, I just wanted to come back slightly on Councillor Tucker's question as well. So you'll be aware that when we're looking at commercial negotiations like this, they don't happen overnight. So not only did it wasn't that it started 3 years ago either. We'd been in conversations about the art of the possible. The biggest change, you said what's changed, was the biodiversity net gain legislation with planning. So when we started the discussions around this offering, there wasn't the understanding, whilst there was the understanding of the principle of biodiversity net gain, there wasn't the understanding of amount of value that it would take to mitigate that. And so what looked like a sustainable offer from the operator at that point, when we delved into the detail of biodiversity net gain, it became very, very, very hard. So if I could give you one thing of what changed over that period, it was a change in legislation.
I think that's
Okay, so on the recommendation then, do you want to put on there a clawback? This comes back to us at the end of January.
Yeah, I'm happy to propose that we get an update at our January committee meeting. I mean, we can't tell another service committee what they need to do in terms of how they come to that report. But obviously I'm saying it here in an open forum that I very much hope it is what group or task finish group that will look at this intensively so that we're able to get some progress on this and it's not just bounced from meeting to meeting around.
I agree. I'd be happy with that change. Anyone else?
possible.
Yeah, okay. So we'll add in the words with an update back to this committee in January. Okay. Members, right, let's take.
Just one question.
Yes, of course.
Chair. Has the Bakewell people it's not compatible, have any of the wildlife groups, universities, whatever that like on their students who are in that field to be able to have access to the unique ecosystem we've got there? That may be a way forward.
Martin?
Yeah, one of the things I put in the report today, not wanting to steal Environment Committee's thunder, is that clearly environmental education is one stream of thought in future options. So field study absolutely is a key part of that, Councillor Clark. So yeah, without wanting to design the offer tonight, there's definitely lots of those options that the committees can consider.
Okay, so we've got a proposer and a seconder with the amendment. Are we happy, content to move to the vote? Yeah, okay, all those in favour? Unanimous, lovely, thank you very much. Thank you, Martin.
Item 8 is voluntary and community sector lettings policy. This is an update. Kieran, over to you.
So this report is presenting a draft, to emphasise it's a draft of an update to a policy which was first adopted in 2013, which essentially sets out the circumstances in which the council will consider giving a concessionary rent to the voluntary and community sector in council-owned properties, and the basis on which the discount would be. The updated policy kind of covers much of the same ground, but it has been updated in part to simplify it, in part to be more cognizant, if you like, of the council's current financial position and long-term financial position in terms of its need to derive income from its property asset. It's also amended the scoring system by which the level of discount is considered, where it would be awarded, because the old system, not quite sure it happened, but you didn't have to demonstrate significant community value to actually achieve some level of discount, albeit at the lower end. And not that that ever was the case, to be honest. The application of this policy, I say in the report, has been relatively limited, because a lot of our community assets have agreements in place which predate even the 2013 policy, but also so the work out the discount is based on the market value rent, and a lot of the community occupied assets have a nominal market rent value. So actually, there is no need to apply a discount. It's done on a straightforward, can't think of the word basis. But yeah, it might be £1 or £10 a year or something. So that the intention is that this would be epical. Thank you. I don't know why I couldn't think of that word. The intention would be, with members' agreement, to put this revised policy out to consultation for a period of 8 weeks. Obviously, largely focused on the monitoring community sector, but obviously going out to a wider audience as well to get their views in terms of those changes, and then to bring it back to the January committee with any revisions for final approval if that's what members wanted.
Okay, members, got any questions? Oh, okay, you go, Councillor Clark, and then I'll.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's just clear. This is one thing really. When we did hear several meetings ago about the being a budget tenancy, and just being at that particular site. But at the moment, how with voluntary sector or private sector that wants to take up any space in this building, there's two problems I see at the moment. One is our Labour and friends down in the Undercroft. It baffles me, and Councillor
Several councillors.
Wise and yourself and various others have spoken to the chief executive about this. I can't see what the problem is with actually shifting them permanently. Obviously, we can't destroy their accommodation, but when they're not there, we could remove the accommodation, shall we say, their tents. And if they come back with new tents, we remove their tents again. They soon start coming back if they've got keep buying tents. But the police should be backing us up and getting them out. And the second point is this building's not going to be around for much longer if we don't go into a unitary authority, because I can't see any unitary authority wanting to move into this building. It's big enough. So in what, 2, 3, maybe 4 years' time, this building is going to be devoid of all of us. And at the moment, you've got a couple of tenants on the second floor. Are any tenants want to actually, be they voluntary sector or private sector, want to actually sign up for such a short-term lease?
The market generally is pretty flat in terms of small office space. That's on a commercial basis. Speaking to agents and kind of others who are trying to make space, I think everybody is struggling. There is a very high quality offer, very modern office space. Can secure tenants, but the market is generally very, very flat. I think there are some extraordinary costs associated with filling this building as well, which is in part why this building is excluded, if you like, from the VCS lettings policy. There is obviously, if a VCS organisation takes a discrete building, they take responsibility for that building, and the costs associated with us having a vacant building go away from us. So there is a benefit to the council by offering that discounted rent. In Swell House, we have a set of fixed costs. We can't separate out those costs. We can't separately meter those costs. And as if we were to fill up space with people paying nominal or limited value rents, as it increases, there will become disproportionate costs in terms of the wider management of the building, in terms of our opening hours, in terms of the way the whole the building would need to be managed. So that is why the building has been suggested in the draft excluded from the VCS lettings.
So yeah, so I 1 point, maybe 2 now. So I think is how we would consult.
Sorry, I'm just whispering saying, should we clarify how many tenants we have? Because you mentioned a couple and we're trying to count up Satida, Clarion, Swale FM, EKC Group.
We've got quite a few tenants.
Got more than 2.
Yeah. We've got several tenants.
More than 2, but not as many as 10.
Yeah.
I mean, I was unaware of the actual number of tenants, but it was just for illustrative purposes.
So the first point was around how we consult, and just to make sure we get a decent response on that. So you can answer that one. And I think the second point, which I know, this is obviously about the VCS policy, and this building's excluded from that. But I think separately, I think this committee would welcome a report from the officers, possibly in January, about security of our assets, in particular this building.
On Monday evening, after the JTB meeting, I think you nearly you had to back up, otherwise you would have run over one of them that was laying on the ramp. But one of my friends had to literally pick him up and roll him over out of the way. And one of the girls there, I think she got picked off, she cut her hand or something. So
that sits outside this. So I think we ask the officers to.
I think something like that needs to be done.
I think we need to have possibly, whether it's a policy, whether this committee thinks it's a policy, or some way forward on how we secure our assets for staff, for members and users. But whether it's a generic policy, whatever, and that needs to be. Okay, Councillor Stevens.
I just want to say, I think it's a shame that the groups like the Kings of War groups, Teeter and Swale FM, City Hall FM, will have to pay full whack. This building's excluded. It's such a shame. They do so much community work.
Yeah, and I hear what
I noticed.
Yeah, I hear what you say, but I think we've got quite considerable running costs in this building. But I do think we need to sort out other issues in this building in order to make it more appealing to let it out. But that's aside from the agenda item tonight. So, anyone? Oh, do you want to talk about consultation, Kieran?
I mean, we use our usual mechanisms in terms of we have quite extensive email circulation lists for, especially for the community and voluntary sector, but we're going out to town and parish councils, but also all members, county councillors, etc. So yeah, Chris has prepared a press statement, etc. So you can.
Okay, right. I propose the recommendation as drafted. Anyone else want to comment? Raising any issues? Should we go to the vote? Those in favour? Anyone against? Abstention, abstention, okay, thank you. Right. Thank you very much, Kira. So that was carried. Item 9, levelling up funding programme update. Lorraine, sorry, Inga. Inga, would you like to give us an update?
This report essentially summarises the continued progress of the environment programme, highlighting milestones, improvements, and outlining the benefits and social values of education so far, knowledge and lessons learned. It also notes the challenges that serves to inform our approach going forward. In terms of our continued progress, progress follows on from the December committee meeting, where we had approval for appointment of our contract for Beachfields, and simultaneously we were having approval for contract of the Masters House. And since then, in January, we had the planning permission achieved for Beachfields, and contracts were signed in early summer, which enabled the early enabling works to begin. Construction contracts were signed with ETEC and building associates accordingly. We also had the construction contract we agreed by Sheffield College, UKC, to start works there as well. Highlights and milestones, we've had several milestone events to mark the start on site for each project, and not least the completion and successful launch of the Sheerness Shipwreck Adventure Golf, which was designed in part by local students, developed and named in consultation with the wider public. The Adventure Golf opened its gates in July as planned and exceeded expectations. Since the summer or since opening, we've had 6,490 visitors to the course, which is encouraging for the other planned activities coming forward, such as the Tag Active and the Adventure Play, which is due to begin in terms of the works upon that. In our commitment to social value, we've engaged students from such as the primary school to bring forward the Adventure Golf to instill a sense of pride and place and ownership for young people. Further social value contributions has included cost-free logistical support for the partners at Beachfields in terms of their temporary relocation, prioritising the local supply chain and charitable donations to launch it, for use of space at Masters House by the current contractors, and student participation in bricklaying, part of Sheffield College expansion as well. There are so many other social value commitments to come forward, which will benefit a broader demographic, and that will include prison population, the elderly, and hard to engage young people in an attempt to support with antisocial behaviour across the sites. In terms of lessons learned, of course, there are some taking an agile approach to switching contractors when it's found to be more financially sound, to keep in line with Beachfield budget, and the delayed signing contract at Masters House, which raised questions on whether or not we needed a mechanism in place to establish a mechanism to allow officers to appoint the second highest vendor without the need to come back to committee, and thereby avoiding any further delays to the programme or increase in the budget. The report also serves to remind councillors of the governance process and the role of the Economic and Policy Committee to provide strategic oversight, what the function of the member working group, support the delivery team with the monitoring of the outputs and outcomes and spend the grant funding. And in terms of next steps, work continues at pace across all three projects. However, to enable further progress of the programme, we have planned a series of public engagements over the coming months into 2026. Design of the Tag Active and the Adventure Play as mentioned before, and the outdoor gym, which of course will be a free provision. Landscaping works due to start and enhance the public grounds at Beachfield, and to conclude a lease agreement with the returning partners at Beachfields as well. The proposal therefore is for members to note the update and provide comments.
Okay, members.
I mean, I'm very excited for the GP surgery to open. It's my GP. I'm sick of having to go to Minster when I need a GP
Might have to
appointment.
declare
I
an
get
interest.
the ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, I went to Shepherd College and I hope that they do well. Yeah, I input my time. So I hope they continue to serve students. And obviously I went to the golf. It was great. The numbers really impressive of the amount of people who've got to go there. And I hope that continues to be a good business case to prove that investment is worthwhile in Sheerness and draw some future investment.
Amendments? Yes, councillor Chipson.
Yeah, just before the venture golf was open, I noticed on Facebook remarks was, oh, this is going to be a failure and very negative. I think that's sort of one positive thing. So I'm so glad this has really been successful.
One question I think was raised was, there was someone raising a concern, the policy finish. Well, obviously we've got various guarantees, etc. I presume that's something keeping an eye on.
We have a snag list, of course, that's expected, and the works to do some remedial works will continue, will commence in November, 10th of November, just after the school half term. So it's not to impact that peak time.
Yeah.
It'll go on for a week, so there are some elements that need to be redone. But it is in quite heavy use.
Which is great. That's great. That is really good. And then we're ahead of target on income from that, which is brilliant news. So thank you. Councillor Kavanagh and Councillor Wise.
When I came back to Kent 15 years ago, I used to go to Sheerness often with my son because it was cheap, it was run down. This is, I mean, last time I went to Sheerness, I saw the college extension. Quite obvious. I haven't been to the golf yet, but I know it's a young person's thing now as well, young adults. I mean, my son has gone, he's coming up 25 all over the place. So it's quite a trendy thing, as well as, you know, the rest of us knocking it around. But it's wonderful to have a better provision for something that was very run down. We used to go and go bowling, but you knew that if you threw the bowling ball, you've got to adjust it because it went to the left, because clearly it wasn't level. So this sounds a whole better quality thing, and to be done within budget and having GP surgery on the ground floor, you know, in this day and age, you expect to have disabled access for all sorts of things. Most certainly a GP surgery. Thank you.
Councillor Wise.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very happy to attend all of the groundbreaking events for these, and I look forward to the completions of the Towers, the college, and the leisure centre next year. I think it is great news that the adventure golf is as well used as it has been in just a couple of months. There's lots of people I know who have been over there, and it's not a one-time thing. They were all impressed with it. I know lots of people, like Councillor Kavanagh said, who go to them all around Kent and for repeat visits. I've got family members that do that. So that is the intention with this. And it's great to hear some of the feedback from some of the local businesses nearby as well, who say this really has increased footfall for them over the summer, aided by the weather, obviously, that we had, which, you know, it was a real boost. It's being launched when it was. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the Masters House workshops open, because going there and seeing people who hire space their stuff they're doing and how that will be complemented by what will be offered through the workshops will be really great. I suppose the only thing I might say is, I know I've raised this in the past, is it would be really nice if we could find some funding somewhere to really finish how Beachfields looks, which helps us seeing how we could maybe do something with the seawall a little bit so that it's not quite a harsh grey bottom there. Now we've got something there, and all of the landscaping, I think I'm confident will really finish that setting off really nicely. Just whether there's anything we can do to really vessels, there's other bits we own around that locality that will really complement that and finish it off, really make it the desirable location it ought to be. And having had the works being done there and with the golf being completed, I know my colleagues from CNS have said that the number of ASB incidents massively decreased. So it's had a real impact on that locality, which was, that location was really known for being an ASB hotspot. The way that's come to tackle that is a real benefit.
Other ones? One other thing I just want to check on is on the progress on the masters. I think there's always envisioned about solar. Where have we got to on that? You were hoping I wasn't going to ask, but
We went with to discuss the solar panels, and it was always the intention to connect the solar panels.
Yeah.
As part of that. So we're exploring that.
excellent, because I know because of the systems we put in to make it a low carbon building, that you have to have that, otherwise you end up with an extraordinary electricity bill, which I think is what they're experiencing, and bearing in mind they're taking on the studios, we need them to survive. And it's part of, to agree at the outset. Okay, that's good to hear, thank you. Members, anyone else, any final questions? One thing, actually, Martin, you're listening, is when I was walking from Tesco's towards Beachfields, that alleyway avenue against the sea wall, you know, we're spending so much money doing up the area, is whether we could get our street cleaning team to have a good check, regular check in that area, because it looked pretty awful when I walked down there. Granted, that was about 2 months ago, but we can, if we can get those teams to keep an eye on that, because there's no good us doing up a small area and neglecting the other areas. That would be helpful. Oh, Councillor Wise, I've
Yeah.
triggered something.
No.
there.
I think once, you know, the leisure centres complete and all the landscaping is done, I think there needs to be a sort of holistic walkabout with areas. It's just to check that everything fully covered is done there. But say it would be a shame. I can think of our example, being there, do a bit of attention as well. And you know, there's certain things that we own that we might not be maximising as well, which we just need a fresh in light of this hopefully being the big success that it's so far shown itself to be. I suppose the only other thing I would like to just say is a thank you to the officers that have helped oversee this, because it has been complicated and complex programme, and to have kept a real grip on finances around this. Obviously yourself as well, Chair, helping to ensure that you know, should go notice.
And I have to say that it is really disappointing that we've had the ASB, you know, the antisocial behaviour around some of the assets where we've spent money on these. So, and I think this has been a real problem that the officers have had to try and tackle. But we need to make them feel as uncomfortable as possible. So making sure that environment is clean and tidy, you know, and well lit and well used, and the footfall is up. Will hopefully try to alleviate some of those issues, but thank you to us. Okay, right.
Oh, well, I mean, since you've mentioned it, Angela would be disappointed if I did mention, she's always willing to go do security. She's just waiting.
Yeah, she could take her away. Okay, members, right. I think this is a report for noting. Are we happy to note the
Noted.
recommendations? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, what have we got next? Let's have a look. We've got the does anyone want to refer to the blue paper item that that's been circulated?
No, I mean, I'm quite happy to note it.
You're fine, okay, that's fine. So let's move on to item 11. Oh, sorry, that's the blue paper. Oh, that was it. Right, okay. That's it, isn't it? Yes? Right, thank you very much, members. Thank you for following along. The meeting is now closed at 9 minutes past 10.
Yeah.
Good. Oh, I know.